Okay, let's fix the hair. All right. Hey everybody, it's Katrina and I cannot believe it is already August. It has been 6 months since my last monthly reflection. This video will be July / the first week of August reflections. And as always, I'll be using the Passion Planner reflection questions. So I'm gonna leave the questions in the description box and they'll also show up on the screen. If you wanna pause the video and reflect along with me, that would be awesome. I would love to hear any of your thoughts if you related to anything in the comments below. So yeah, let's get started. So question 1 is, what was the most memorable part of this past month and describe it? So for July, I put 2 different things. I put summer school and the SD trip. I'll start by talking about summer school. I wrote here that being back in the classroom just felt really nice, and I think summer school really reminded me of the positive parts of teaching. And I think this was really important because I spent so much of fall semester before I left my job just ruminating on all of the negative things, the things that were stressing me out, how I felt so burnt out, how I felt dread, and was just constantly feeling really negative about it. I mean, there were positive moments for sure, and I don't want to forget that. But I think before summer school, I felt like I'm not going back to teaching, and I feel good about that decision. After summer school, I honestly feel this new wave of motivation and inspiration to unlearn and rewrite my mindset and my practices to somehow try again. And this is something I'm still working through. Please don't quote me on that. I don't know exactly what will happen, but I do know that I enjoyed my time. I really enjoyed building relationships with my students, as always, seeing them form relationships and friendships with each other. And I really felt like, above all, I was starting to build confidence in my own teaching. I know I'm still very, very early in my teaching career, but with each iteration, each new course that I'm teaching, I feel myself gaining more confidence in what I'm doing. And it seemed kind of subtle, but when I look back at my journals that I wrote during fall semester last year, I was just so filled with insecurities about my teaching. I always wrote like, I hope that the future me will feel more confident in her teaching, more confident in her teaching. And to think that in summer school, I was teaching ethnic studies again. This is still a very new course to me. There's a lot I don't know. I had to refresh my memory, but I felt myself seeing the impact of my work, seeing things that worked better, you know, period after period, or I made tweaks that worked, and just feeling more confident with myself, sharing what I was doing online, which I think is a huge marker of confidence. In the fall, I didn't share much about what I was doing in my classrooms. 1, because I just did not have the time or energy, but 2, because I didn't feel good about what I was doing. So then for the San Diego trip, at the end of July, my friends and I took a little weekend trip to San Diego. Thank you, Charles, for planning and inviting us. It was just a big group of friends from elementary school to high school. It was kind of like Ryan and I kind of joined this larger group that we weren't really a part of, but they were just so welcoming. And I just felt like it was so wholesome and fun, and I feel so grateful to be welcomed into that group with childhood friends, some which I am very close to and some which I did not talk to at all growing up. And so even though we've known each other since middle school, like we just started talking right now. And so it's been fun to get to know them. We had really like lighthearted laughs and talks to really deep and emotional talks that I really appreciated. We played sports, and if you follow me on Instagram or if you just know me in person, sports are not my forte. I am extremely, extremely insecure and self-conscious when it comes to sports, and I have never really ever stepped into play any sport, but we played volleyball, and it might seem like nothing to just play a friendly game of volleyball, like no one's pro, but I had to sit on the side for a while before I was able to muster the courage to step in. But once I did, it was just so fun. I was laughing so hard to the point where I was coughing so much. But the entire trip just left me feeling really warm and cozy and appreciative. And with summer school and that trip, I felt like both were a nice, short duration that left me feeling really bittersweet when they ended. And so, yeah, those are just some good memories for me to have. Alrighty, question 2 is, what were the 3 biggest lessons you've learned this past month? I kind of have them in like quotes, The first one is something that Ryan actually told me. He said, everyone is messy, at least you're honest about it. And I think the lesson here for me is that there is no one way to behave in relationships, whether they're romantic relationships or friendships. There's no one way they should look. But I think that society, the media, family, culture, religion, everything really has ingrained it so deeply in us, including me, of what is considered normal. And any deviation from that is looked at as wrong or, so messy, so like sinful almost, messed up. I don't know, just all these things. And I think I've always let the fear of judgment, especially for my sister, and this is something that I talked to her about too. I think I've let that fear of judgment dictate the way I act and engage in self-talk in my relationships. Like, how do I view myself as a friend, as a girlfriend, as whatever. But a question that I try to ask myself is, how much longer will I keep myself from doing what feels right to me out of the fears of what others will think? So this is just like a reminder, little lesson for me, because I beat myself up a lot for being, messy. And when Ryan told me that, everyone's messy, at least you're honest about it, it seems so simple, but it really struck a chord with me. So thank you for saying that. Lesson 2. I put here that we are what we consume, this idea of that self-fulfilling prophecy. And I don't mean consume in like food. I'm talking more about, I think, the media, and the conversations that we consume. This is in line with teaching. In the fall, when I was leading up to leaving my job, I didn't know I was going to leave my job, but just kind of in that time period, I listened to the podcast Teacher Career Coach. This entire podcast is dedicated to helping teachers transition out of the classroom. And so it's a bunch of teachers who have gotten fed up with their job, are at that breaking point, are burnt out, are unhappy, and they are looking for a solution. And I felt like that was what was resonating to me. I also would go on the Instagram like Teacher Misery, which just posts a bunch of memes about teaching. I felt like I was really resonating with that kind of stuff at the time. And as I was consuming all of that, the idea of this profession is not sustainable, I'm unhappy, I'm miserable, was at the forefront of my mind. Whereas after summer school and in these past several weeks, I've been listening to the podcast Truth for Teachers, which is a podcast dedicated to helping teachers come up with more, sustainable practices to help them stay in the classroom. I have to say that just the mindset and the takeaways that I'm getting from these two different podcasts is so different. I'm not trying to say one is better than the other, but I'm just saying I think my lesson is that in the fall, I kept the negativity at the forefront of my mind because I wanted to wallow in it. I wasn't necessarily looking for a solution, I think. I just knew I was unhappy. I started to question, the profession, myself, and I wasn't actually looking for real strategies because I didn't feel like I could get to a better place at the time. And so I think that this is just a good reminder that what we consume is really important in the takeaways and the mindset and just the intentions and the feelings that we carry day to day. Hopefully that makes sense. Last lesson is that words of affirmations matter. Whether it's to a partner, coworker, lifelong friends, students, teachers, family, even strangers, even if it's not someone's primary love language, I think that there's so much validation, love, care, and affirmations to spread when we express ourselves. And in this last month, I feel like I've really leaned into that. And again, something I've mentioned in a previous video, for some people, opening up is something that comes naturally. I'm one of those people where I feel really uneasy when I don't open up. I've learned that for some people, it's really, really hard to open up and they may not be used to it. They may not be able to articulate. I think it's so hard to even understand our feelings, let alone try to articulate them in a way that someone else will understand. But I think that in this last month, I've really just had a lot of conversations around appreciating the people in my life. And I think it really makes a difference, even if it seems subtle or even if the people on the other side aren't super sure how to receive it. I think that even if it's, a friend since childhood and you have a really great conversation and you just say hey, I really appreciated this conversation. Thank you so much for the support. Thanks for spending time with me. I had fun, I like being your friend. I think that just hearing it, saying it out loud, it does go a long way, and so that's something that I want to practice more. And something that Ryan has told me several times too is like, oh, thank you so much for saying that when I do say something affirming or reassuring, and it also just reminds me of the impact that it can have. All right, returning the page. Question 3 is review your planner for the past month and assess your priorities. Are you happy with how you spent your time? If not, what steps could you take next month to adjust? So I put here that honestly, I don't know. I haven't really reflected or written down goals in a long time, but I think my big goal for July was to not let summer school take up my entire days and night and to not burn out. Last summer when I taught summer school, you'll see in my last June reflections, I had a completely different mindset. I had a completely glorified idea of overworking, of just like pouring everything, even if, you know, it makes me so tired, at least I feel like my head is above water in the classroom. And I love, you know, still feeling confident and knowing what I'm doing in the classroom. But there were times this summer where I was just so exhausted that I told my students like, hey y'all, just give me 15 minutes. I'm gonna be really transparent that I went to sleep at 8 p.m. because my head was hurting, so I didn't prep for today. So just chill for 15 minutes as I set up, and then we'll get back together, okay? And it worked fine for them, it worked fine for me. And so I think I've really learned to just let myself go. Like, I don't need to always step in 100% prepared. Things are going to be okay. Students are understanding, they're not always showing up 100% ready, and it's okay. So back to the answer. I think that I did achieve this, but as I was reflecting here, I felt like I did feel behind in different areas. So I was still working my social media job while I was teaching summer school, and I felt like I was getting behind, more behind than I would like on that job. And then I took, you know, a couple dance classes, but then my membership ended and I thought, oh, I'm not gonna redo my membership until after summer school. But it was definitely a better balance of work and social life and just stuff for myself. I did still go out with friends this summer, which is something I did not do last summer. And overall, I just feel like I'm proud of myself, even if it's not consistent. And as I finished up this answer, I wrote here, be easier on yourself, Katrina. And I actually went in and edited and said, actually, I think I did do a good job. And I want to remind myself that being inconsistent doesn't equate to doing bad. I think sometimes I think, oh, if I'm not consistent with my routine here, then I didn't do it. I didn't reach the goal. But life is inconsistent, and I feel like my needs and my energy levels change from day to day, and I can't expect that I will always have the capacity to check everything off that like ideal day checklist, if that makes sense. Like some days I was so drained, I couldn't dance even if I wanted to, and I think to honor that rest is something that I need to get better at and not beat myself up for like, man, today was such an unproductive day, but say, hey, today is what I needed. And to be happy that overall I did a lot better. So I'm just gonna say, good job me. I think even though I didn't have clear-cut priorities, I think I did a good job with summer school. Question 4. How are you different between this past month and the month before that? So for me, I'm gonna do July versus just before July because the months are a little bit fuzzy for me. So I put here that I feel subtle changes in my mindset. And although still uncertain, I feel more hopeful and confident that things will work out, even if from the outside it doesn't look like it. And then I wrote a quote from a journal entry that I wrote in July. Your daily actions are the revolution. There are so many things that are out of your control, but there are so many things you can choose to do or not to do. Rewriting and unlearning your mindset will not be easy, but it'll be worth it. Here's to the next chapter. It takes bravery to step back into something you once stepped out of. Here I'm talking about teaching, but it can apply to different things too. Give yourself time. Things will work out. You have time to figure it out, and even though sometimes it feels like nothing inside has changed, things are always shifting. You're always learning and growing little by little. So I think in July, I just started to appreciate these small little changes in my mentality. This is kind of a tangent, but part of the reason why I didn't make videos in the previous months are that I went through a really, really hard couple months. It felt really, really dark, and I just didn't feel like I could make any content. I was having a hard time just going about my day-to-day things. And so I feel like compared to that, I'm at such a better place right now. And I just feel really proud of myself for all the little things that I am doing to help myself, even when times are rough, when times are better. I feel like I'm truly committed to my own growth, and that is something I just feel like I like about myself. That was a tangent. Who asked me that question? I don't know. Okay, here we go. Question 5. What or who are you grateful for? So I put here, first one is friends who know me, love me, and accept me and my emotions. This is from my sister to Ryan to my friends, all of the people in my life who just really love and accept me for who I am and all the damn emotions that come with it. 2, people who make work more joyful, whether it's my students, my bosses, my colleagues at work, my remote job, all of that, just people who make work more enjoyable. Rock. All the people who were rooting for me and supporting me returning to the classroom. You really don't know how much it means to me that people, whether it was acquaintances from high school, strangers on the internet, were happy to see me back in the classroom. I felt so happy because I felt that same way, and to see that you all were so excited for this journey, it felt great. I felt a lot of pressure because what if I don't return back full time? But I do feel really supported by you all, and I just want to thank you for that. And I want to give a shout out to everyone who participates in my Instagram drop boxes. So each week I put a little question box. You can leave anything, questions, requests, whatever. And I am just so happy whenever anyone leaves something. I am really grateful for everyone who follows along and reads it, even if you don't drop anything in there. I love engaging with you all, and so thank you for that. And lastly, I'm grateful for walks with my mom. That has been something consistent since like last year, and I'm really happy we're continuing to make an effort to just get some steps in and chat. Question 6 is name 3 things you can improve on this month. What concrete action items can you take? The first one is an ongoing goal, and it is to be more intentional with my morning routine, to really focus on and think about what makes me feel energized and positive to start my day. It doesn't necessarily need to be lengthy, but just to really take note of what makes me feel drained, whether it's mentally, emotionally, or physically. And I know it is going on my phone for hours and hours on end. So even if it's just, hey, getting up for a 15-minute walk outside before my meeting, I'm really learning the value of time. And even a short amount of time can allow me to do something like make a matcha latte, go on a walk, wash my body just so that I feel more refreshed. And those little things make a big impact for the rest of the day. Second thing is to better recognize when it's my anxiety talking rather than the reality, truth, or what someone else is actually telling or showing me. So if it's not clear, I have very, very intense anxiety, and I feel like I've gotten better at, managing it, but there are times when it is just through the roof. And I think that sometimes I'm not so good about recognizing when it's actually my anxiety talking and telling me like things that are just opposite of what is actually being told to me. So an example of this is sometimes when, Ryan or some other friends, they'll be talking to me, I start thinking like, oh, they don't enjoy my company. Oh my gosh, they probably don't even want to be my friend. They don't want to talk to me. They don't like me. But then I have to step back and say, they literally just told me something very opposite from that. They gave me an affirmation. They gave me validation. And I think it's so easy sometimes when I'm feeling stressed or anxious to get caught up in these thoughts that really belittle my own self-worth, if that makes sense. Like I'm constantly doing things that just make me feel worse about myself, that make me more anxious, and then I say the same thing, and then it just like, it really shows. And I think it's really hard for the people on the other side to deal with it too, because you can only assure someone like so many times, right? And so I want to just be better at recognizing when my anxiety is just like poop at the forefront of my mind, and when I can tell it to like, hey, back off and believe this person. Just believe them, you trust them, and just trust what they're saying, and trust that they do enjoy your company and that you are a worthy friend or girlfriend. Yeah, it's hard. Easier said than done. The last thing I want to improve on is to be as present with Ryan as I am with the other friendships in my life. I think sometimes it's really easy to slip into the habit of, well, he's my boyfriend, I see him all the time, like I could be more casual, you know, as long as we're together, we're spending quality time. But I realize that when I'm out with my friends, I don't talk to Ryan. Like he kind of just knows that I'll be MIA for hours, and it's because I really want to be present with whoever I'm with. But I really want to be able to do that with him as well. Even if, you know, we eat all the time, like how can I be more present in our conversations, in our activity that we're doing? And sometimes it's hard. It's hard because I do feel like, ooh, let me just check my phone. Oh, someone else is talking. But it is something that I've been trying to do. I tried to do it better yesterday and he said that he noticed, so it's a constant work in progress. But some things I put here: stay off phone and laptop, don't multitask because we both suck at it, listen, ask questions, reassure, and affirm him. Alright, we made it to the last question. The last question is, what quotes stuck out to you this month? And just talk about it a little bit. So the first quote is one that I feel is going to really stick with me throughout life. It's something that I saw on Instagram and I honestly forgot where I saw it, but the context was this girl's brother passed away and her friend had told her this quote. It says, "Life is not about feeling better, it's about getting better at feeling." This goes kind of hand in hand with what I was saying earlier about just how hard it is to even understand your own feelings, let alone articulate it. I think sometimes, you know, in regards to heartbreak or loss or grief, people are always saying like, oh, time will heal, like you'll get better, like, oh, you're over it, over it. And I think that comes with this idea, this myth that these negative feelings like will go away and that's where we should aim to be. But I've never been somebody who likes to, you know, rush away like heartbreak or whatever, because I truly think they're always going to be a part of me and I'm okay with that. I embrace that, and I think that getting better at feeling is so important because emotions are incredibly hard to navigate and manage, from anger to happiness to jealousy, all of that. And I really want to be able to better hone in my emotions, to be able to express them, to be able to dive deep into them, and just be able to share them with myself and with others. The second quote is by Morgan Harper Nichols on Instagram. She has just amazing, amazing quotes. One that she posted the other day was, "Perhaps courage comes more naturally to you than you think." And then she puts a few notes on courage, so I'll put them here. "There are moments in life when we are very aware that we need to do something courageous. We are very aware that we are going to have to breathe deep and take a leap. We may hesitate for a bit, and our heart races as we think about the potential outcome, but we do it anyway. And we are glad that we did, even if it was scary. But then there are other moments. There are almost moments of courage that come more naturally to us. These might be the times when we don't even think twice about some courageous thing we did. Here's an example of what that might look like. Perhaps there was a moment where you finally told that person how you truly felt. And whether it was a good outcome or a heartbreaking one, you remember that moment as clear as ever. You remember the lump in your throat. You remember the way your voice shook as you spoke. You remember walking away aware that even though you did not know what the outcome would be, that was the courageous thing to do. But then there was everything that came after that moment. There was the way you told your best friend about how it all went down, the way you woke up the next morning and carried on with your day, the way you made it through the next few days, weeks, or months, seeing things a little bit differently now. There have been so many moments like that in your life, and even if you tried, you might not be able to remember them all. You might not be able to remember them all because they weren't the big moments. They were the moments before and after the big moments, but nevertheless, they were moments of courage and you didn't even know it. So maybe the reason why you are not able to remember all of the moments you have been courageous in your life is that courage comes more naturally to you than you tend to think. Maybe the moments where you feel like you can't access some big capital C courage is because you have been capital C courageous all along. And that's something to be proud of. Because perhaps courageous comes more naturally to you than you think. For the select few people that know what I've been through in this past month, that is such a relevant piece. And I really do feel proud of myself for being courageous, even when things feel so scary and uncertain, and to just be honest with what I think and what I feel. So that's something that really stood out to me. This other quote is by Ryan Seacrest. I heard it on the radio and I shared it on Instagram as well. And it says, "One day you'll overcome whatever it is you're going through and it'll become part of someone else's survival kit." And as I had mentioned, this just reminded me of the impact you can have with sharing your story, whether it's to, one-on-one privately to a friend, publicly online, in a Reddit forum, wherever. There's just so much value in our experiences, and we truly don't know how far that ripple of inspiration can go. And last one is a quote on imposter syndrome from the Truth for Teachers podcast, and it is, "The cure for imposter syndrome is to build up your sense of self-worth and to truly recognize your skills and accomplishments. The problem isn't that people think you're better than you are. They're not wrong about your competency. The issue is that they think you're better than you think you are. Their view of you is higher than you view yourself. Imposter syndrome isn't rooted in reality. It's not about your actual skills or expertise at all. It's rooted in the way you see yourself. If you've accomplished things that are greater than your own perception of self-worth, you'll experience cognitive dissonance anytime you're praised." I mean, I've seen so many quotes on imposter syndrome, and a lot of them do resonate with me as someone who deals with it a lot, deals with inferiority complex, insecurities. But this one just really helped reframe it in that the more I build that sense of self-worth and confidence and self-esteem, that is the only way I'm going to tackle imposter syndrome, is to just build myself. Like, I'm not going to magically wake up one day and feel super confident. That's just not going to happen. I thought that it might happen once I got into Harvard, once I graduated, and it didn't. And honestly, I think imposter syndrome is one of the reasons why I ended up leaving my job. And so I recognize just the true detrimental effects that it can have on my own mental health and very, tangible impacts that it can have on my personal and professional life. And so I feel very motivated to try to combat this imposter syndrome. And I think slowly, through many different things in my life, I am starting to build my own confidence, and I want to just continue with that. So that is all. I really hope you all enjoyed it, and I would love to hear any thoughts, reflections that you have in the comments below. And just thank you so much for watching till the end. I always feel like in these videos I really pour a piece of my heart out, and I just want to thank you all for making the space for that. I really appreciate you and your time, and I can't wait to see you in the next video. Bye bye!